Heat Panthers seasons. I want to get high, Vlad. We need to get high. It's Saturday. I also want to get
Okay.
low. Get low. High and low. Highs and lows of the Panthers and Heat season. I have some highs and some lows from both, but I want to start with you. And I want to start with the Heat. Can you name at least one high you had during the Heat season? It could be during the regular season. It could be during the postseason. It just can't be during the preseason because nobody cares about that.
Mm. I mean, clearly the high for the Heat season had to be. You have to talk. It's the playoffs. Anything that you want to talk about successful with the Heat, it's the playoffs. So
No, what specific moment
Jimmy
do you
56.
sticks in your
No, you
head
know
that you're
what?
high?
Jimmy's 56 is everybody's always gonna think about. But I'm gonna say game one of that Milwaukee series. Because they remember we were talking like, what's gonna happen? I was like, you know what? They're gonna win game one of Milwaukee. Now they smacked Milwaukee, and pretty much you kind of after that game one, you're like, oh, okay, this is a different Heat team. And the minute you said that, up until this past Monday, they literally were a different Heat team. So yeah, that game one victory against Milwaukee to start off the postseason, to start off the playoffs, not the postseason, well, the play-in. Yeah, but that game when Jimmy went off and Jimmy was talking hella trash to everybody, he set the tone. It was the tone. It was the tone setter for the postseason run.
I have a different high than probably most people do. New Year's Eve, Miami Heat. Tyler Hero hits a buzzer beater right almost at the stroke of midnight. And that was one of those things where I was working also, not wanting to be here on a New Year's Eve, especially till midnight, but I did go to a party afterwards. Nonetheless, when he hit that shot, number one, I was glad it didn't go to overtime. But at the same time, I was like, what a way to end the year and begin a new year. I think the Heat have really turned the page, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They're going to make a big run. Tyler Hero, buzzer beater, New Year's Eve, right there around midnight. I thought it was symbolic of the season the Heat were about to have. And in the end, Tyler Hero wasn't a part of that end, but they did have an extremely successful season, making it all the way to the NBA Finals. So at that one point, I was super high on the Miami Heat. But
And then what happened? Then they disappointed
they
you
kind of
up until
disappointed.
the postseason.
And that's what we have to do now. We have to look at the lows. What was one of the low lights, or maybe the lowest point for you, at least during this Heat season?
Well, I don't. If they were losing, that made me happy because I'm a Knicks fan. But one of the low lights for the Heats this season, it was that West Coast trip that Tobin always talks about. Like they got their ass smacked, and then Spoelstra's talking about, I like the way we're playing. Like, and he was right. That's the craziness about. Remember when you went after Paul Maurice?
Yeah.
And a lot of people were kind of criticizing Spo. Those two crazy men are geniuses. They're geniuses. They're genius, and they knew what to do. They knew how to get their team prepared. So I would say the low point for the season, if I was a Heat fan, was when Spo was that one. I think it was. Did they go 1-5 on that West Coast
Yeah,
trip?
it's terrible.
And he still said
Denver started it by beating them in
right.
Denver.
And he said that he likes the way the team is playing, and we all looked at him like he was a kook and crazy, and he was absolutely right.
So out of the low comes a high. Of course, there's always the easy low to say, when we lost to Denver or when we lost 3 games in a row to Boston in the playoffs. But my lowest of low points was towards the end of the season. It was on a Tuesday night. I remember it very vividly.
Damn, you remember the day, man.
Yeah, we took on the Detroit Pistons.
Ugh.
And if it weren't
towards the end of the season?
Yeah, very end of the season.
Yeah,
if it weren't for Jimmy Butler being super Jimmy at the end of the game, we got our what handed to us by a Detroit Pistons team that was trying to lose.
Let me add more onto what disappointment this season. Then he couldn't beat the worst teams in the league.
Oh yeah, they were terrible against
the Bulls
bad teams.
owned them. Well, until the
San Antonio Spurs came in here and beat us.
Detroit.
If it weren't
scared
for Jimmy,
them in every game,
they outplayed them every game. That doesn't mean that the Heat lost.
Charlotte, there was a Charlotte
loss. Got us. Oh yeah,
it was a nasty Charlotte loss during the season.
But I remember that Detroit game vividly because we just got it handed to us. And at the end, Detroit was not trying to win, by the way. They weren't playing anybody. Jimmy Butler had to be super Jimmy and Detroit had to be Detroit. We barely win. And I remember I was at the Downtowner in Fort Lauderdale where I'm at Tuesday nights. There were people legitimately there saying, why don't we just tank the season, at least give ourselves a chance to get Victor Wembanyama? And I was like,
they were
wow,
saying that during the
this
play-in.
team is that bad.
You know what?
And
I know
I
nobody-
didn't believe in him at that point.
I know nobody's gonna be honorable and say that they thought this, but I want people to come out and said that. I want those that wanted them to lose and not make it to the playoff. They wanted them to lose both playing games.
That's stupid.
To try to get a chance to
Stupid.
get Wembanyama.
Stupid.
I want to hear them. I want to hear them right now after 2 months of emotional, ecstatic journey. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it might have ended bad, but geez, man, these guys gave you 2.5 months of
magic
fun,
run
of fun. Both teams.
You never know when you go into the tank what might happen. And if the Heat, for some reason, would have tried to tank, look at the journey that you would have missed out on. So that was our highs and lows for the Heat. Now, let's get high. Vlad, you ready to get high?
Always.
Always. Nice. Panthers, highest moment for you with our Florida Panthers.
Oh, it's got to be 3-1 comeback, bro. It's got to be the 3-1 comeback against Boston.
That was one of the more memorable, great moments I would even say the goal with like a minute left in regulation of game 7, we were up against the ropes. So we thought we might be dead. That goal, I was also, man, my high. I have two really, really high moments. The regular season did not get very high on the Panthers. I'm not going to lie to you. There was never a time when I got like, woo. I did like calling out Paul Maurice, and Paul Maurice proving me wrong and going on a little bit of a run. That was pretty good. But I'll say this. The whole Toronto series, I was on a high because I called that one a mile away, Vlad. I said it until I was blue in the face to you, to you. I said, this team is a team of destiny, and the Maple Leafs, 1, 2, 3, Cancun. They're happy they won their first series in 19 years. They are not putting up a fight. They are not doing anything. I predicted a sweep. It was a gentleman's sweep. I saw that. I mean, maybe I was just high because I saw that coming so easily, and I never wavered, and it pretty much happened the way I said it. And then, of course, the other high, my goodness, when Matthew Tkachuk hit that series winner against the Carolina Hurricanes. I was at 26 Degree Brewing in Pompano Beach. My dude, Dolphin Dave, his sister Carol, we were doing the whole superstitious thing, and when that goal hit, I started hugging randos. It was fun.
6 over. That overtime win?
Oh, I forgot about that high. Whoo! I was at Duffy's implantation till
which one?
Duffy's implantation till 2:35 in the morning. I was me and my dude Clive and like one other person are there. The bartenders Justin and Shannon just want to go home. We probably should have left, but no, you couldn't do that.
Triple overtime?
I don't know, man. That Carolina, I was so hammered at both of those events, but that quadruple overtime, that did like okay, that's the highest high. You can't beat that. That's legendary high.
You don't get there without the game 7 win in Boston in overtime. That was the other thing about the Panthers. Every overtime, I felt like if you were a Panther fan, you felt confident that this team was going to win. They had like they have a 7-game winning streak in overtime. Like they've won their last 7 games in playoff overtimes.
Clutch. What a guy with a broken sternum.
And I'm gonna tell you this: I had no lows with the Panthers. In the beginning, obviously, when Game 4 in the first round series where we were there and we saw Boston just laid a smackdown on them, it was like, all right, well, this season's gonna be. And lo and behold, they won Game 5 in overtime. They won a good game. That was a great Game 6. Both teams were scoring, and Boston was up, and then Florida scored 2 or 3 goals in the third period to win. And then Game 7, obviously, the unbelievable comeback and knocking out the number 1 seed Boston Bruins. And that was the other thing about, you look comparing the Heat and Panthers season. Both teams were 8 seeds. Both teams took out the preeminent favorite, the prohibitive favorite.
Took out Boston,
league, right? Boston might have been the best team ever. Both
Boston teams. Goodbye.
Milwaukee was the number 1 seed, best record in the NBA.
Goodbye.
Took them out. You beat 2 teams in the second round. You beat 2 fan bases, 2 teams that, because they won a first round series, were going crazy. But some people might take shots. Obviously, I'm talking about the Knicks and the Maple Leafs. that they were all happy just because they won one series.
I thought Toronto was just happy. I thought the Knicks were just maybe not outclassed. They were out talented. I thought Miami.
They were out
I kind of saw that one a mile away too, Vlad. Not to push
I will say this. I'm going to say
the knife in a little bit more.
You've been correct a lot over the last 2 months. You've been waving a flag and planting it and saying, "Hey, the Heat are going to beat the Bucks in 7." Well, they beat them in 5.
And then I
You said the
said,
Panthers would win in 7 against the Bruins, and they did.
yeah.
And you called the goal. I mean, you called the score.
I called a couple scores, yeah. Couple overtimes too.
We called it. You can go back to
the
the history.
We've been good. We run it back.
But yeah, Panthers gave me more highs than I don't think any. The only low would have been when they were down 3-1. But after
that's getting right there. You and I were in the stadium, in the arena, and I remember how disgusted I was. You were a little less disgusted than I was. I looked at you and I said, if this is what we've been building towards, I don't want to build anymore. I thought the season was over. We got our ass kicked on the scoreboard and we got beat up in the fights. And some of our fans kind of got beat up by Boston Bruins fans in that. So I was
right, Trevor.
I was so low at that point. I was disgusted, Vlad, that I gave up my afternoon. You and I gave up our afternoon to go watch that pathetic performance. After all year long, wait till the playoffs, wait for the build. Now we're down 3-1 to a Boston team that just kicked our ass, literally and on the scoreboard. I was done. I said, Vlad, I can't believe this. This is garbage. And you said, "You've little faith, believe." In hockey, you can win 3 games and come back. I go, not against a legendary team that just beat our ass.
But I always say with hockey, your goalie gets hot. That neutralizes everything, bro.
So that was my low point. That was my low point and I mean, I kind of like when you called Paul Maurice out, we didn't say, you suck. We say the jury is about to deliberate. You give us your closing arguments. And wow, what closing arguments Paul Maurice gave us. That's a high right there. You have to admit, that is a high right there.